everybody, Claudia Boleyn here, and welcome to Claudia Boleyn Reviews Doctor Who. Today I am reviewing Doctor Who Series 9, Episode 5, The Girl Who Died, written by Jamie Matheson and Stephen Moffat. You have absolutely no idea how excited I am to review this episode. There are so many things to talk about, so please excuse me if I spend the whole review just sort of fangirling and talking about theories and stuff. Also bear in mind, obviously it's going to be a spoilery kind of thing. You can't review an episode without giving spoilers, surely, anyway. So yeah, there's going to be spoilers. I think this series so far has been so much better than Series 8. For me, it's still not as good as the good old days of the Rusty Davies era and some classic stuff, but I really think it's picked up, and I'm really pleased with that. I'm getting really into it once again. A sign that I'm getting really into it once again is that I'm going back to Gallifrey Base and reading the theories, and if you're not a member of Gallifrey Base, then, you know, you should totally be a part of that. It's just this massive Doctor Who forum with Whovians from all over the world discussing Doctor Who. It's an amusing place to be, sometimes a little bit soul-destroying, but, you know, it's fun. So this episode, as I said, is written by Jamie Matheson and Stephen Moffat. You all know about Stephen Moffat, I'm sure. Jamie Matheson wrote Flatline and Mummy on the Orient Express, which is interesting because I thought Flatline was pretty good, and I thought the Doctor's characterisation was totally off in Mummy in the Orient Express. So it's really interesting to see another one of his pieces of work. Something I did notice, which was just appallingly bad in the episode, and I'm sorry, I have to go here, it was shamefully bad, it was laughably bad, it was bloody Odin's face in the sky. Did it or did it not look just like God from Monty Python and the Holy Grail? I love that film, by the way, I love Monty Python, but it really was bad. So the villains of this episode were the Maya, which are a formidable warrior race, which kind of turned out not to be so formidable. They weren't really as scary as they could have been, were they, considering they were supposed to be the most terrifying warrior race in the galaxy. I mean, there are 1,000,001 plot holes in this episode, and I'm not going to pick them all apart, because really, this episode is about introducing Ashildr and her story, and giving us further characterisation of the Doctor and pushing him along in his story, and Clara pushing her in her story. So, I mean, it's fine that it doesn't make much sense. One thing I didn't like about this episode, and even though on the whole I actually thought the Doctor's characterisation for 12 was quite good, I still don't like this idea that this Doctor doesn't like people and humanity and doesn't like hearing people's names. I mean, why would the Doctor see these people who are going to their deaths, who are going to fight to their deaths, and not want to know their names? Like, for me, the Doctor would want to know the names of all of these humans that are going to give their lives. Instead, he starts giving them comedy names. And, I mean, it's a funny moment, but it just doesn't feel right for the Doctor for me. Okay, there is the thing about eels that I have to bring up. Some people are saying that the episode is historically inaccurate because the eels wouldn't actually be in that place at that period of time. I don't know, I'm not a historical expert on eels, but that's something people have brought up. Also, these people are saying, apparently these eel experts are saying, I don't know how they have all this knowledge on eels. Maybe everyone has this knowledge on eels and I'm just lacking in my eel knowledge. But they're saying that eels, electric eels, aren't actually eels. They're more like normal fish, apparently. That's what I read anyway. And so they didn't like that very much, the idea that the Doctor would refer to electric eels as eels. Again, I can only bring this up because I don't know a thing about eels, and to be honest, I don't care to know any more about eels than I already do, which is a very small amount. Now, for that poetic baby everyone is talking about. Some people in the Doctor Who fandom don't like the fact that the Doctor talks baby, and, you know, I can kind of see why. I have to admit, I cringed a tiny bit. It was a little bit uncomfortable and not my kind of thing when the Doctor was translating for this surprisingly articulate baby who was talking like he's a poet laureate. I can understand the baby thinking things like, I'm scared and I want my mum and when's it time for tea and oops, I pooped my pants, someone change me. But I can't imagine the baby being like, oh, the fire in the water, is there anybody kind? Is there a world beyond the unfolding of your beautiful smile? It just got a little bit embarrassing. On a technical level, people are saying if the Doctor can speak baby, then why is the TARDIS not translating baby for everyone else? That's a good point, but for like me thinking about it, I'm thinking it's probably more telepathic. I'm thinking the Doctor probably embellished what the baby was thinking. I don't know why he did, but he's probably like just feeling the baby's emotions in a sort of telepathic way, because that would, to me, explain why other people aren't having baby thoughts explained to them in proper English. Okay, so let's be honest, this episode was basically The Moment of Truth, which is a Merlin episode from BBC Merlin. it was just the moment of truth with aliens and immortality. I don't know if you've ever watched BBC Merlin, but if you haven't, I cannot recommend this show enough. This show is it has a very special place in my heart. And in fact, one of my all-time fictional heroines, Morgana Pendragon, is in it. So I would recommend you watch it just for her. I have heavily modelled myself on Morgana Pendragon throughout my teenage years and beyond, which probably explains an awful lot about me. I'm not accusing Doctor Who of plagiarism here, but I mean, they are remarkably similar episodes. Is there a BBC conspiracy going on? I mean, I didn't say that, you didn't hear it from me. Okay, something I was asked to bring up in this episode is the demise of the sonic sunglasses, and a lot of people are rejoicing over this because they think it means we get the screwdriver back. Again, I didn't have a problem with the sonic glasses. I do prefer the screwdriver though, obviously. Who doesn't prefer the screwdriver? The screwdriver's iconic. So I am hoping that the screwdriver does come back as well. Also, a lot of people don't like the fact that this episode kind of was a comedy-ish sort of episode, and the Maya, really, were defeated by Space YouTube. A lot of people don't like that. It is silly, but I don't mind silly in Doctor Who. It seems like one of those stories that in a later episode the Doctor will say, oh yes, I saved a whole village of Vikings by uploading a video to Space YouTube, and everyone will laugh like, oh, hilarious, Doctor. And it will be true. We'll know it's true. It just feels like one of those things, so I don't mind. I need to apologise for that Scottish accent. I'm so sorry. Okay, so now it's time to talk about Ashildr, who was played by the amazing Maisie Williams. People tell me I look like Maisie Williams, which is pretty nice, because Maisie Williams is like so striking and like powerful looking, and it's just pretty cool anyway for someone to say, oh, you look like Maisie Williams. Thank you. People also say I look a bit like Jenna Coleman, which again is an overwhelming compliment, so thank you for your kindness in these words. That's why today I did my hair like Ashildr. I don't know how best to show you this hair. Here it is, my friends. The lighting is really bad. I don't know if you can appreciate the hard work. The 15 minutes I put into plaiting my hair and somehow fixing it on top of my head. So obviously, Maisie Williams being a member of the Game of Thrones cast, she's a phenomenal actress. I think that most people in the Game of Thrones cast are pretty darn amazing, really. Like, their casting directors are always bang on. So it's so great to have her on Doctor Who, and incredibly exciting to have those two fandoms collide, because I am a fan of Game of Thrones, quite a big fan of Game of Thrones actually, although I do criticise Game of Thrones a lot. I think me being a fan of something is actually like a curse. I think maybe people would probably rather I wasn't a fan of their stuff, because me being a fan means I just criticise everything about it. But it's part of the way I express love, you must understand that. Her death scene actually really moved me. Maybe slightly because she's Maisie Williams and Arya, and it just made me really sad. But also because I think her death scene was pretty well done, and the scenes surrounding that were quite emotional, especially the fact that they threw in David Tennant and Catherine Tate. I don't know about you guys, but I was pretty excited to see them. I felt emotional and overjoyed to see them because I miss the Doctor and Donna so much. Just the fact that even now, Donna Noble's kindness and her refusal to just accept the world for the way it is, and her desperation to change things and be brave and strong and kind. She's still changing the world now. It's really down to her that 12 has this face. A lot of people are saying, oh, it's because of the 10th Doctor that the 12th Doctor has this face. No, it's not. The 10th Doctor only did it because Donna begged him to save someone. This is all Donna's work, my friends. I mean, most people kind of had already theorised why the 12th Doctor had Calculus's face anyway, so it wasn't like a huge surprise, but it was so lovely to see it on screen and to have that sort of plot point tied up. There is a theory which I've read, which I'm on board with, I read it on Gallifrey Base actually, which is that the Time Lords can only regenerate into faces or forms that they have already seen. And it would make sense because obviously you have like the first Doctor meeting the second Doctor meeting the third Doctor. All the Doctors that have seen future Doctors therefore turn into their future Doctors because they've already seen them, and then you have people like the 12th Doctor turning into Calculus for a special reason where the Doctor wants to send himself a message. I mean, it would make sense because if you think about Romana and her regeneration scene when she was with the 4th Doctor, I mean, she's trying on different bodies, like clothes, really. She's testing out different people she's already seen, so it would make sense that that theory is correct. It also makes Doctor Who make sense a whole lot more because a lot of the time the actors that get chosen in Doctor Who for stuff are actors we've already had in it before, so that's an easy explanation question now if we want to just pick a great actor we've seen already to play the Doctor. If we're talking recent actors in Doctor Who, might I suggest Natalie Gumedi from Last Christmas? She would make a fantastic Doctor, I'm just saying. So Ashildr is now basically immortal. She's being repaired by the Maya kit thing that went into her forehead in a creepy way. And now she's going to continually be repaired. She's going to be living sort of like Captain Jack, sort of like the Doctor. I don't think she can age, which must be quite disturbing for someone, because in the next episode preview she doesn't look much older. I don't know if she's supposed to be playing someone older. Maybe she ages really slowly and she does age slightly. I'm not sure about that. Will she be a companion in the future? Who knows? I mean, it makes sense that she would pop up in the Doctor's life quite a lot now, and also it makes sense that she's probably met the Doctor a few times before, which explains why the Doctor recognised her face slightly. Talking from a real-world perspective, would someone like Maisie Williams, who is so in demand and who has a contract with Game of Thrones, be able to be the next companion after Jenna Coleman? I don't know if she would, but certainly I think they'll bring her back. They'll have to keep bringing her back, won't they? A lot of people are speculating that she will become a villain, which is the most wonderful idea, because surely if you're immortal and you've lived through so much, you must grow quite bitter towards the end of it, I would imagine. I think it would be really hard to keep that sort of optimism and that positivity and that kindness inside you, because I think you might start to get angry that history keeps repeating itself. I mean, in that amazing shot, clearly that's where the special effects, which should have been used on fake Odin's floating head, that's clearly where they were used. That wonderful shot with Ashildr standing and watching the world as the rain fell behind her and the world kept turning and she didn't age. Oh, that shot was beautiful. It was wonderful. It reminded me of something from like an M83 video. And in that beautiful shot, I think that when you really looked at her face, she started out really excited and optimistic and thrilled with this opportunity she had. And as we span round her, as the weather began to change, her face kind of turned, maybe I'm reading too much into this, but it seemed that she looked disappointed. And at the very end, she looked angry. She looked very bitter. So maybe she resents the Doctor for being made immortal. I mean, it must be really tough. Would any of us really want to be immortal? I certainly wouldn't. It's like the Doctor said, being able to die is an ability. I mean, Torchwood deals with this dilemma really well with Captain Jack. You know, how does it feel to not be able to die? Is it a blessing or is it a curse? A lot of people, especially a lot of human people, would probably see it as a curse, I think. So it'll be incredibly interesting to see if she does become a villain. I would love to see Maisie Williams, little pint-sized Maisie Williams, playing a big villain in Doctor Who. Do it for the short people, Maisie, do it. I mean, I say that she's pint-sized, but she's probably taller than me because I'm 5'1", and that's pretty short. Now, as I've said before, I've gone into this series without any spoilers whatsoever, so I don't know what's going to happen in the future, and maybe you watching this might know more about the character of Ashildr, who she is, who she ends up being, if she's a villain or a hero in the end. Please don't tell me, because I kind of want to not know. I like to be surprised this series. I knew too much last series and it kind of ruined it for me. So you might know more and I might be talking rubbish, but just indulge me, let me do it. One thing I did notice in the trailer for next week's episode is that Ashildr is calling herself the Nightmare. Now, I was talking to my brother about this and we were saying, what if she ends up being the Nightmare Child? Because you know how the 10th Doctor spoke about the Nightmare Child, this being, which I don't know what the Nightmare Child is, but that's kind of like a Time Lord legend kind of thing, and since Ashildr doesn't age, it makes quite a lot of sense to me, as someone who doesn't know any spoilers or anything. Maybe she will become the Nightmare Child. I mean, it is just like the Doctor to create some big super villain. Poor Jenna Coleman this episode had a bad cold. You could hear her voice was deeper than usual. So I can't imagine it would have been fun to do an outdoor muddy shoot in a space suit while you had a terrible cold. But she was wonderful as usual. I just think Jenna is so good, and even when Clara's material is kind of lacking, she really brings something to it. I think she's very talented, and I think that when she's gone, we're going to realise what a gem we had there, especially because I think that the writing has let Clara down so dramatically in previous series. I think that she's brought something so special to Clara. She's made us care about a character which at the start was really not written very well at all. Next episode's going to be written by Catherine Tregenna, which is unusual because it is a two-parter. The Girl Who Lived is the second part, but it's odd to have that written by another writer. Catherine Tregenna has written for Torchwood before, I believe, so should be interesting. She's probably well-versed in the idea of writing an immortal character and how that feels, that kind of thing. So I'm really looking forward to it, I really am. I just can't wait to see Ashildr again and find out more about her and go on Gallifrey base and get myself involved in some really far-fetched, complicated theories. Again, if you do know more about Ashildr, then please don't tell me, because I want to make theories for myself and read other people's theories and kind of stay in the dark and just wonder and enjoy it. So if you know, don't tell me, don't correct me and say, no, she's not the Nightmare Child, she's the Rani. So thank you so much for watching. I can't wait for next episode. As I said, this episode for me was less about the actual plot line and more about introducing Ashildr and this new element of the Doctor's character. Obviously this episode is a big deal because we had Stephen Moffat writing on it as well, so clearly as showrunner he thinks that this episode is going to start something big. So I have high hopes for Ashildr, and I'm hoping she does become a villain, because I would love to see Maisie Williams play a villain, basically. She's a wonderful actress, and I'd love to see that happen. Also, how cool is it that I actually have character I can cosplay as properly now? Okay, I love you loads, and I will see you next week. Goodbye!